Welcome to the Life You Love podcast.
We're your hosts, Grace Lemire
and Erin Convertini.
This podcast is for the dreamers and the doers.
For the women who want to create a life they genuinely love waking up to.
We believe that life's short, so let's build one we love. We are 8 months into 2024 when we are filming this, and one of my goals at the beginning of this year was to end it as the best version of me, which I'm gauging in 4 categories: becoming the happiest, hottest, healthiest, and richest me yet. And I was inspired to do this in the format of a 1-year experiment because of a quantum leap year that Kathrin Zenkina, or the Manifestation Babe, had, and it's truly been so transformative. It's really shown me just how much your life can actually change in just a year, which really isn't that long. I mean, even being 8 months into the year so far, I'm already seeing so many changes. And so many of you have asked me to go more in depth about this 1-year experiment and to talk about it and give you all the deets. So that is what we're going to do today. And I'm super excited to finally talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this too. I feel like you and I haven't really talked about this much in person either. And when we filmed that 2024 goals episode, I remember us having the conversation around like setting less concrete goals for the year. Like, we weren't sitting in that episode being like, okay, this year I want to save 10K, or this year I want to lose 10 pounds. Like, none of our goals were really focused on that. It really was around like, okay, this year I want to become my own it girl, and I want to like feel my best, look my best, like spend my time doing the things that make me happy. It was around a lot of those like less concrete goals, which I love. I think there's like so much benefit in doing that. But I like that since that episode, you have kind of like pulled it back and be like, okay, even though these goals are less concrete, let's attach sort of like a framework to it, and so that we can still track progress to some extent, and we can still kind of go from like a point A to a point B, because I think that's what is challenging for people about setting goals that are less concrete and are just about making incremental progress. It can kind of be challenging to be like, okay, but like, what is the end goal here? Like, when will I feel like I really accomplish my goal? And you have a really good outlook on it, on kind of being like, okay, no, it's 365 days. That's the point A to the point B. It's not point B is losing the 10 pounds. It's at the end of the 365 days, we're going to see how much has actually changed in my life. So I guess kind of like going back to the 1-year experiment, why did you decide to do it as a 365-day framework? And I know you mentioned the girl in the intro that you kind of like got the inspiration from. So like, did she develop the framework? What does that look like? We are so excited to announce that the Life You Love community is going international. In February of 2025, we are hosting an international group trip and retreat to Colombia with EF Ultimate Break. If you've never traveled with EF Ultimate Break before, or have never taken a group trip before, think 1 week surrounded by 20 to 40 like-minded women that can truly become your best friends. I've taken countless group trips in my life, and it's the perfect way to travel more, even if you don't have anyone to travel with, or if planning the trips and figuring out the logistics of the trip stresses you out. In Colombia, we're having a week of sightseeing, beaches, boats, and of course building a community of like-minded women, which we could not be more excited about. If you want to see the full trip itinerary, learn more, or book the trip, we'll put the link in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode.
So Kathrin Zenkina is an entrepreneur. She also goes by the Manifestation Babe. That's her brand. And I think it was an episode of her podcast, or maybe someone else's podcast she was on. I'll try to find it, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes. But basically, there was an episode she was on where she was talking about when she was an entrepreneur in the beginning of her entrepreneurship journey. She basically did a year where I don't know if she called it like her like F it year or like something along those lines, where she was just like, I'm just gonna like relentlessly go after what I want. And she was able to take her business, I think it was from $9,000 a year to like $500K a year or something in that span, which in the spirituality and manifestation space is referred to as like a quantum leap. When you make like a big leap like that, it's a quantum leap. And so she refers to it, I believe, as like her quantum leap year. And so I was talking to my friend about it, and it just kind of came up of like, we should do that. Like, we should make this into like a little 1-year experiment where we commit to making as many decisions as possible based on what we think our higher self would do. And if you're not spiritual or you're not familiar with that term, your higher self is basically the version of you that has it all, the version of you that already has everything that you want to manifest. That's your higher self. So what would that version of me do? And it's you. It's not a separate person. It's you. It's just a different version of you. It's you down the line or whatever. How would they make decisions? And so I was like, okay, that actually feels really good to me for a couple reasons. One, I love challenges, and like when I'm tracking everything, like I'm doing like my own version of 75 soft right now, and I have like a little printed out tracker where I track everything. That really motivates me. So I felt like, okay, saying I'm going to commit to this for the entirety of 2024, 365 days, it gives me a really easy framework to follow of like day 1, day 2, you know, like really going through the year. But also I think that we see a lot of challenges that are like, you know, do these very specific things like 75 hard, where it's like 2 45-minute workouts a day, etc., whatever. That always feels a bit too rigid to me. And I like the idea of just trying to come back to the same question every day of what would my higher self do, as much as I possibly can, rather than orienting around like a specific metric. And so my goal for it was really to end the year as like the best version of me. And that also felt really inspiring to me, because I don't want to orient around a specific metric. Like I didn't want to be like, oh, I want to try to, lose this weight or make this much money or whatever. It was just like, can I end this year as the best version of me? And then as I started to do it, I was like, okay, when I think about the best version of me, what's the difference? Where's the gap between where I am now when I started the 1 year experiment and where I want to be? And it came down to like, I wasn't really happy where I was at. I wasn't confident. I wanted to grow my wealth for sure. And I wanted to be healthier because I wasn't really living like the healthiest lifestyle. And that's how I got those 4 categories of like happy, healthy, hot, and rich. So that's kind of how I like came to it. And I want to make it clear, it was not my like, I didn't come up with this idea. Yeah. Like this was from Kathrin Zenkina that I kind of like adapted.
Yeah. So. I know we kind of talked about this, like the idea of the goal itself being less concrete, but the time frame being concrete, and that being really motivating. Like you have, okay, 365 days, and we're not going to like sit here and track progress every single day, like in a super concrete way, but you can be like, okay, I've been doing this for 8 whole months and I still have 4 months left, and look at where my life has gone in the last 8 months, and you can kind of like gauge your progress based on that. I know we talked about this in our New Year's goals episode as well, kind of the idea of acting as if the goal has already been achieved, and like that is what's going to guide your decision making processes like in the right direction. So let's say your goal is to lose 10 pounds, or you don't have like a specific metric to it, but your goal is to lose weight, be healthier. Like I'm just using that as an example. Like what would the version of you that has already accomplished that health related goal, like how would she act? Like what would her routines be? How would she treat her body? How would she talk to herself in the mirror? Like those kinds of things. So I feel like that's a really good way to look at it, is like all of my decisions, I'm acting as if I'm already like the highest version of myself, or I'm acting as if I'm already my own it girl, and kind of like going from there.
I think too, like one of the reasons I started it, because you were talking about like how would my higher self act, and I also think it's a good thing of like, what advice would my higher self give me in this moment? Because I think that when people hear the like, oh, make decisions based on what your higher self would do, they think that you need to go balls to the walls, where it's like, well, my higher self would be so active, so like starting tomorrow I'm gonna go to the gym 5 days a week, or I'm gonna like, and if you're going from 0, like, oh, I go to gym 0 days a week, is that actually sustainable to go from 0 to 100? And the answer is probably no. Like, and especially when you're trying to improve several aspects of your life, like I wanted to be happier and healthier and more confident and build my wealth and whatever. Trying to go balls to walls on all of those at the same time was not sustainable. But also, I don't see creating the best version of me as like, it ends in 2024. This is a lifelong thing. And I need to commit to it for the long term. So doing some sort of like 75-day framework or 90-day framework or whatever, and expecting to see massive results is just really setting myself up for failure and disappointment. I need to be committed to the long game. So phrasing it in terms of a year, and also going back to the question of like, what would my higher self do? What advice would they give me? It's like, okay, on day 1 of this experiment, like, what would my higher self tell me to do? Like, you know what I mean? I'm sitting there staring at my apartment and it's not clean. And I'm like, frick, I really don't want to clean it today. It's like, what would my higher self tell me to do? She'd be like, all right, let's look at the situation. Like, you're exhausted today. Like, maybe you go take a nap and then you clean your apartment. Or like, maybe you do like a 15-minute power clean. Like, really being realistic about what those things are, rather than trying to go with this like framework of, yeah, like a 90-day challenge or whatever, with these arbitrary boxes you're trying to check that really aren't bringing you closer to you, because that's the goal, is to bring like you where you're at closer to your higher self, so that you morph into that like version of yourself, rather than morphing into like what you think you should be, or just trying to check arbitrary boxes. And I also loved that, like, for me, I'm not someone who likes to focus on specific metric based goals. I don't find it very motivating. I like to focus on feelings. So for me, being like, okay, how much can I grow this year? How much can my life change? That I was like, hell yeah. Like, I want to see at the end of this year, like, how much happier I am, or I want to watch myself evolve, versus trying to be like, oh, I want to, yeah, like lose a certain amount of weight, or make a certain amount of money, or, you know, do this specific thing. Like, that doesn't feel exciting to me, because then ultimately the bar is just going to move. Like, and then what happens if I hit that? Let's say I was like, oh, I want to make a 50K month. What happens if I make a 50K month in March? But then I'm done. You know what I mean? No, like, it's about the evolution of me. And I think that's why the framework works.
Yeah, definitely. And we had on our list here, like, kind of setting up the experiment. And like you said, like on day one, when you don't want to clean your apartment, I think a lot of this does come back to having that self-awareness into what areas of your life aren't in alignment with your higher self. And I think that's a super underrated kind of like aspect of this, is starting with that, like starting with the, okay, let's like really take a look at my life. And like, if things aren't, if I'm like not, if I don't feel like the best version of myself, if I don't feel like my own it girl, why is that? And like, let's do some reflection on what those aspects are, because then you're not going to know what to focus on for the next year. You're not going to know like what decisions you do need to be like altering your decision making processes for, in order to reach that level.
We have had so many conversations about this offline, because I feel so passionate about the, like, if you genuinely want to change your life, you need to be solution oriented. Like, so many people, especially in their 20s, get into this mindset where it's like, okay, I feel myself like slacking, or I feel myself, and that's fine, right? Slacking is not the end of the world. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's like, let's say you have a goal, you want to be more active, or you want to have a cleaner apartment, or whatever it is. You notice that you're not doing those things. You notice that you're not where you want to be. And then people sit there and they twiddle their thumbs. Or like, gosh, the number of people that I've like talked to who like get out of a relationship because something didn't work out or whatever, and they're part of the problem, right? Like, I'll use myself as an example. Like, I got out of a relationship. I realized I had an anxious attachment style. He had an avoidant attachment style. And I was like, okay, wow, I need to actually work on that. The number of people, and I did, right? I literally deleted dating apps and I worked on it for like 6 months with my therapist. But like, the number of people who will like have the self-awareness to notice, oh, I have an anxious attachment style, and then do nothing about it. Or like, I notice that I hate my body, and then do nothing about it. Or I hate where I live and do nothing about it. I hate my job, do nothing about it. Whatever it is, it's like, you are not going to change your life by literally doing nothing. Like, you have to balance the action and attraction to where it's like, I know maybe I can think of the life I want, or I'm able to recognize I'm not happy, or I'm able to recognize my relationships keep failing. Well, then you have to do something. Like, you actually have to do something about that. And I think that's why this framework has been so powerful for me, because it's not necessarily about doing something very specific where it's like, okay, I hate my body, so, or I don't, because that was one thing for me. Transparently, I was very like insecure, and I was having a lot of body image issues with all the health things I was going through last year. I was struggling with all the body changes that were happening as my body healed. And I was like, I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to be the person that is like picking myself apart in every photo. I don't want to be the person that feels insecure all the time. Like, I don't want to be the person who, like, shopping, I'm like crying in the store because I'm like so frustrated about shopping. Like, okay, what can I actually do? And I would sit there and I'd be like, okay, what would my higher self do right now? And for me, like, I talk about the color analysis thing on the podcast all the time, but that was a direct result of this experiment, because I was like, my higher self is not going to sit here and be like, oh, woe is me. Like, I hate everything in my closet and I don't know what flatters my body now that my body looks so different than it did before my health struggles were all figured out. And I'm like, she would literally set the money aside to go figure this freaking thing out and go like pay a professional to help her get a solution. And then I did, and my life's gotten exponentially better. Like I don't get frustrated all the time when I'm getting dressed anymore, and I like appreciate my body for what it is and everything it's gone through. And like, but you can't just sit and like harp on what your problem is. You have to actually do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think if you think about the version of you who has it all, who has figured all of it out, going back to like, what advice would they give me about that? Is like, it's just so empowering to think like, okay, yeah, what would that version of me say, and how can I take steps to get to that?
Yeah, one of my favorite podcasters of all time, she's the host of the Mindset, Magic, and Manifestation podcast. We were talking about this earlier. She, for a while, was doing this thing where she was challenging herself to take one, she called it a batshit crazy action step every single day. And she literally like kept a journal, and like once a day she would journal about like the one action step that she took that. And she would wake up in the morning and be like, okay, what action step am I taking every single day? And like some of these would take a long time, whether it's like applying for a new like freelance role, or she like applied to be in this like TV segment the one day, like really like big steps. So sometimes they would take a good amount of time, but she was like, I'm going to do this for, I think it was like a 60-day period, and just like see where I can end up. And I think it's such an expansive mindset to go into, because you're like, once you start to like get that momentum, you can truly see where like how much progress you can make and like how much you can truly grow, where it can be really overwhelming to be like, okay, I've done sort of the reflection, I'm becoming self-aware into the aspects that I want to improve on, but it just feels really overwhelming to change all of my habits to truly become that person. But I do think that like that stuff starts to snowball, and once you start to like see the progress and feel the progress and see how good you can truly feel, it's so encouraging to keep wanting to do more and more of it.
It's literally addicting. Like I mean, we're filming this mid-August. I plan on doing the experiment again next year. I'm going to continue doing it because like you don't realize, like you were kind of saying with like the micro like habits that you do, you don't even realize how much they compound on each other. Because I think so often we do the like framework of habit tracking, where it's like, okay, I'm going to track the habit of like, I don't even know, going for a walk every day, or I'm going to track the habit of drinking 80 ounces of water every day for 30 days or 90 days or whatever it is. And then a lot of times we end up falling off after it doesn't become like a habit, because I also think we don't have a purpose behind it. And when I do that, sometimes when I would habit track, and I do like to habit track, but I think in different ways. But sometimes when we habit track, it's like you're doing it to check a box in a way, rather than, and then when you miss a day, you're like, well, like, you know, but when you go back to the question of what would my higher self do, to me, I'm like, my higher self, she would be the last person to beat herself up for like missing a day on something. She'd be like, all right, what the frick, just get it tomorrow, girl. Like it's not that deep. You know what I mean? She'd be like, okay, like, yeah, maybe you didn't go for a walk today. You were exhausted and you just needed a nap. Great. Good on you for honoring your body. Like that's what she would say. She wouldn't be like, you know what I mean? I think sometimes the frameworks are too rigid, but also a lot of the moments when I first started the experiment, a lot of the moments I really would start to ask myself the question, were in those small moments. So like one big thing, for example, was I moved into a new apartment in January, it was like 2 weeks after I started the experiment, because I started January 1st and I'm going to December 31st. And moving from a 10 by 10 bedroom, my parents' house, into a 1,300 square foot apartment, like that's a lot to clean. That's a lot to like keep organized, you know, a lot going on. And I would have days where like I'd have like a sink full of dishes and I'd be like, oh, I'm like, I really just want to go to bed right now, you know? And I'd be like, what would my higher self do? She would literally be like, we're gonna power clean. We're gonna put a timer on for 15 minutes and we're gonna do as much as we can in those 15 minutes. And then we're gonna go to bed. Or like thinking about, like a journal every day. And I'm like, what would my higher self do? Like she is committed to her growth, and she is committed to herself. Like a higher self version of Grace is like the number one person to her, where she's like, I care so much about investing in myself. So I'm going to take the 20 minutes that it takes me to like journal and do my affirmations every night and like commit to that. And that's like a small thing, right? It takes me, I mean, it really doesn't take me 20 minutes actually, now that I'm like saying it out loud. I think it probably takes me like 10. And like or like cleaning my apartment, taking the 15 minutes to clean my apartment, or some of the habits that I want to do on a daily basis, or thoughts I want to have, like even like being open with my therapist about like, you know what, I really want to like start having more positive thoughts about myself, or how can I stop myself in my tracks when I'm having a negative thought about myself and rewire that. Like those are pretty small moments throughout my day. I'm not saying that I want to like, I don't know, do anything crazy every day, but that's what compounds on itself. Like those things, like they start to stack rapidly to the point where when I was about, I would say 3 months into the experiment was when I started to be like, holy shit, like I'm actually like, whoa, like I'm like, I'm growing into a very different version of myself. And now, even a couple weeks ago, in July, I was on a call with my therapist, and she was like, she's like, I'm so proud of you. Like, she was like, you are not the same person that you were at the beginning of this year. She was like, even me a year ago when I started working with my therapist, she's like, you have literally, like, she's like, you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
And she's like, you wouldn't even recognize the old version of you. But like, I didn't expect to see the growth happen that fast, being like, you know, like 3 months into the year. I'm like, holy crap, I'm a different person. And now 8 months in, I'm Grace on January 1st, and me now, it's completely different people.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I liked what you said about the habit tracking stuff can just sort of be like checking off the boxes. And this is a really good way to zoom out from that and remember your overarching why. So I'm doing 75 soft right now as well. I've been talking about it on my social media a lot, and I set 10 rules for myself, and I set them based on like my goal, but it's about my overarching goal of becoming a better version of myself. But I definitely do find that if I don't remember my overarching why for it, it can lead to just checking off the boxes. So, for example, one of my goals for 75 soft is to read 10 pages a day. And now that I'm like in 75 soft, I kind of regret setting that rule. And the reason why is, so I said 10 pages of a nonfiction book. And the reason why I set that rule is because I'm in a very like, I've been feeling really productive lately. I've been feeling really good lately. I'm in a phase of like sort of business expansion is one of my like high priorities right now. Reading 10 pages a day of a nonfiction book, like the books that I'm reading are basically like business books, and books about like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. But sometimes what's going to move the needle for like business expansion is not sitting down and reading 10 pages. It's listening to a podcast with a guest that I'm going to learn a lot from. It's watching a YouTube video on a very niche skill that I need to do the next project that I'm going to work on. So it's sort of like, yeah, I can read 10 pages that day, but just to check off that box for 75 soft. But is that like actually getting me towards my overarching goal? No. And I think a lot of people who like do these little challenges and like habit track and all of the things, it's kind of like hard to remember your why.
This reminds me so much of the book Atomic Habits. I listened to the audiobook of it a couple years ago, and I want to go back and listen again because I took so much from that. But one of the things he says in the book, sorry to spoil it if you haven't like read it, but you should read it still. One of the things he says is like the best way to develop a new habit is to start with 2 minutes of it. So he would be like, go to the gym and literally walk on the treadmill for 2 minutes and then leave. He's like, because what you'll find is that once you're all the way at the gym, you're like, well, I'm already here, so might as well work out. Or like, oh, like my goal is to read a book, read 2 pages a day. But then you're like, well, now that I've read 2 pages, I'm kind of hooked and I want to read a little bit more. And I think like that, because I created my own version of the 75 soft that I'm doing as well right now. And I have focused less on like metrics of like, you know, read 10 pages, like, because I had that on my thing too, but it's like read every day because I enjoy reading. I enjoy the relaxation, and it helps me sleep better. And when I sleep better, I feel better. So that's like the reason behind the reading. But I think, yeah, sometimes we don't, like, we kind of just set these like metrics. But I think that like one thing we want to talk about is like, how do you know what your who your higher self is or what they desire? Because that's so important in setting that why for like why you're doing the things that you're doing. And one thing that's interesting about Erin and I is that we did an episode a long time ago with my friend Taryn, who is like so knowledgeable in all things human design, which you can go back and listen to that episode. We won't get into all of that. But basically in human design, you have different manifestor types. And so I am non-specific and you're specific. And basically what that means is that when you're thinking about the life that you want to manifest, I am going to feel way more inspired and empowered and aligned when I'm focusing on not like the fine details, when I'm focusing on how it's going to feel. So like, for example, when I picture my dream home, I can like feel it in my head almost, like I can like visualize it, but it feels expansive. It feels full of light. When I think of the dream version of me, she feels happy. She feels energized. She feels like light and just like, you know, like really like airy. That's the best way to describe it. Like just like on a cloud, basically. Like that's how it feels to me. And when I think of like my career and what I want that to look like, it feels expansive. Like that's the thing for me. However, someone like you who is a specific manifester, you're going to function a lot better when you're thinking about the fine details. And this like comes into play a lot when you're making vision boards. And that's why a lot of people will make a vision board and it doesn't actually translate. Fun fact, because it doesn't feel inspiring to you. So if you actually look at my vision board, it's a lot more about not the thing that's physically there, but the feeling of it. The feeling that each image brings me. But someone like you would do better where it's like, oh, you want to manifest like an apartment that looks like this, or like a career where you're doing this. And so having that like specific thing. So for me, that's why I also have found this framework of the 1 year experiment to be so like empowering and just so transformative for me, because I'm focused on the feeling. I'm not focused on, I want to end this year having made this much, having lost this much weight, having read this many books, done this many things, whatever. I'm like, I want to end this year on December 31st. I want to be like, am I a happier version of myself? Am I say hotter, but what I really mean is more confident. Am I a more confident version of myself? Am I like enriched? I mean, like being the richest version of me, do I feel like I'm living a rich life? Like, do I have more freedom and control? Am I feeling more fulfilled? Like that type of thing. Not necessarily is my net worth 10 times more. Like, I don't give a shit about that. But like, do I genuinely, like, am I ending the year on December 31st as a happier, healthier, hotter, and richer version of me? That lights me up to think about that type of transformation. And then being able to take it day by day.
Yeah.
That's really helpful in figuring out like who your higher self is.
No, definitely. And there's such stark differences between how you think of it and how my brain thinks of it, which is like so funny going back to like our like human design types. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you can go back and listen to it. It was so cool for me to hear because that was my first time getting my human design read and Taryn kind of like talking through it. So I was like live on the episode learning all of these things about myself. And I was like, wait, that's all so accurate. But for me, what's more beneficial and like more impactful for me is one, like really visualizing and like taking the time to do the visualizations on who my higher self is, like what she looks like, what she wears, what her career is, what my like headshots look like what would my LinkedIn look like if I was like literally like what would my LinkedIn look like if I was like the version of myself that I really want to be. And then also the second half of that, because, and again, we like talked about this on the podcast before, but like finding people in your circle who have accomplished like things that you want to accomplish, and that can be career, lifestyle, health, fitness, like anything. It doesn't just have to be like your career, but finding people who have accomplished similar things and like almost using them as proof is really helpful for me. So I find like that when I'm doing a lot of these visualizations, I'm like looking on LinkedIn at like other female founders or like female entrepreneurs and being like, oh my gosh, like this is so inspiring to me and makes me want to work towards like becoming that version of myself.
100%. And it's funny because like that makes so much sense for you because you're specific and I'm non-specific. And you can find your manifestor type by downloading this an app called like My Human Design. I think, I don't know if it's available everywhere. I think it's just in the US, but there's like, it will show you in the app if you want to do your like human design reading. But also I will add too that like figuring out what it looks like or feels like, if you just go to like YouTube and type in like higher self, like visualization, meditation, that's how I got clear on what my dream life looked like, is doing a visualization meditation in a business coaching program that I did in 2022 actually. And it was really, really impactful to literally physically close my eyes and meditate along with this like guided audio. And it would prompt you to like think about like, you know, and don't play small, like dream big, because that vision is what's going to guide you. But on this kind of topic too, one thing that, especially as it pertains to money, that I get when I say like I'm making as many decisions as possible based on what my higher self would do, is people are like, well, like my higher self would have like a lot of money. So then what am I gonna just like go spend my last dollar on this thing that I want because that's what my higher self would do? Or I'm like, no. Or like, it's, oh, my higher self's so active, so like what, I'm just gonna go sign up for a marathon today because my higher self ran a marathon. I'm like, be for real. No, that's not what you're doing. That's not the point. The point is, it's like, that's why I say, like, what advice would your higher self give you as well? Like, the version of me who has everything, she has the dream relationship, house, family, career, money, confidence level, health, everything. What advice would she give me today, as if she's kind of like a big sister looking at me? And if I'm like, okay, like, here's where I'm at today, and I really want to get to where you are, like, how would she view that? What would she go back and do? She's not going to spend her last damn dime on, you know what I mean, some designer thing because she simply wants it. No, and that's why I do these videos on my page that people love. It's like, I'll be like, this is what I want, and I can't necessarily have it right now because like my life doesn't afford me that or whatever. How can I have it? Like, I would love to drive a really nice car someday. I drive a 2009 Toyota Camry right now. Like, okay, clearly I'm not driving a Range Rover, you know what I mean? But like, how can I step into that energy right now? Like, I can't afford a Range Rover right now. Like, that's not, I don't want to do that, you know? But how can I make it happen? Like, what do I need to do, and what do I need to focus on in order to bring that into my reality? That's what it means to like act as your higher self would. And it's also far more about the energy of it. Like, okay, you know, I want to be a more active version of myself, and my higher self is very active and flexible and mobile and whatever. What would my higher self do today to like, you know, how would they treat that? She's just going to focus on probably the energy of it, and like, you know what, today I really don't want to go and like do strength training. Like, I kind of really just want to go for a nice long walk. Or maybe today, like, I feel like I want to try like a boxing workout. We were just talking about this earlier. We both want to try like a boxing workout. Like, it's like, you know what? I'm gonna honor that. I'm gonna actually give it a try. I'm gonna follow that desire because my higher self would follow that desire and like go try it out and see. Or, you know what I mean? Like, it's more about the energy. It's, so don't get it twisted. I'm not saying go put yourself in credit card debt to like, it irks me because people will be like,
me too.
I'm gonna go get into credit card debt so I can like live as my higher self would. I'm like, no, that's not what I said.
One way that I like to think about it is, again, like acting as if you already have it. And how would you act as if you already had it? If you did have that Range Rover, how would you act? You probably wouldn't throw water bottles on the ground.
I was just gonna say, like, treating your things the way that you're like, if you want the Range Rover, treat your Toyota Camry the way that you would treat your Range Rover. I try to do that all the time. I like try to keep my car clean for that reason.
Or another one is closets. So like, we've been talking a lot about like redoing our closets right now, and like finding clothes that we truly love, truly feel confident in. And like, are we saying to go to Nordstrom and buy like a shit ton of new clothes and put yourself into credit card debt? No, but it's about looking at what you already have and being like, okay, if I did have my like dream life, if I had my dream mansion, would these clothes come with me? No, because they're old and ratty and they're from Forever 21 in middle school. They look terrible, or this sock has a hole in it. Like, no, I wouldn't bring that into my mansion with me.
I'm so glad you brought this up because one thing that I learned from Kathrin Zenkina, the Manifestation Babe, which like, go follow her on Instagram, go listen to her podcast. Her podcast is called the Manifestation Babe Podcast. Like, her stuff is so good. Like, I literally listen to everything and I leave being like, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. But she talks about like, if you think about, so I'm like spiritual and I wouldn't say religious, but I believe in God and the universe. I think it's all the same. That's another episode. But I like, the way that I think of it and the way that she talks about it is, if you, let's say you're trying to manifest your dream apartment, right? And you're thinking about the universe as almost like they have that dream apartment and they want to make sure that you are in the place to receive that thing. Are they going, if you're literally treating your current apartment like a dump, because you're just like, whatever, it's not even like cute and aesthetic anyways, and like, it's whatever, so I'm just gonna like let it be a mess, I'm not gonna take care of it, I'm not gonna clean it, I'm not gonna care about it, whatever. Do you look like you are ready to receive your dream apartment? And my friend who's a life coach says this about like relationships too, where
absolutely.
He's like, if your dream relationship showed up at your doorstep today, let's say your dream man checks every single box, knocks on your door right now, are you prepared to actually handle that? And that, when I heard this last year, that shook me to my core because I was like, no, I'm like, if my dream man showed up on my doorstep right now, or last year. Now I'm good. But like, if you showed up last year, I had an anxious attachment style. I had no idea how to communicate that. I was still struggling with my health. I was struggling with insecurity. Like, hell no, I'm not ready for that. And like with the car, it's like, yeah, you want the Range Rover, whatever, you want the thing. Are you treating your 2009 Toyota Camry the way that you would treat your Range Rover? Like, are you actually showing God, the universe, higher source, whatever you believe in, are you showing that you are ready to handle that thing? Because if you're not, that's like creating an incongruence where you're going to struggle to manifest that thing.
Yeah. And the frequency is off.
Yeah. And that's been something also that I've tried to focus on this entire time. Like, I've talked about the fact that this whole year in this experiment, I've talked about the fact that my apartment is not my dream apartment. I love my actual physical unit. And I have great neighbors and all of that, but I don't love the actual location of it. And there's lots of reasons why I chose it and whatever. I won't get into that, but like, it's not the best thing ever. However, I need to treat that space as if it is my dream apartment, because if I want to manifest my dream apartment, I'm not going to get the beautiful floor to ceiling windows, corner unit, gorgeous views, whatever, if I'm treating my current place like it doesn't matter.
And not even like your current unit, but like you said, you like your unit. Part of what you don't like is your location, both like the city that you're in, but also the actual location of your unit. So what are you doing today to act as if you were in that apartment in the perfect location? You're still getting out and like taking walks every day. You are still going and like trying workout classes, and you're like, you still are going and doing the things that you would do if you were in your dream apartment in the dream location.
And I think also too, going back to like what I was saying before with these like little, the self-awareness piece of this is like recognizing where you're at and where you want to be, and then allowing yourself the space, for me, over the course of a year, to progress toward that version of me that is ready to receive that. Because going back to like the relationship thing, I just talked to my therapist, my girl Jen. I call her my girl Jen because I love her. But she literally, I was talking to her about how if I were to rewind to like January 2023, I was like, yeah, I want to be in a relationship. I feel ready for a relationship. No, girl. Hell no. That version of Grace, no. She was not. If my dream man came to me, he would be like, get your shit together, girl, and coming back later at a later date. Like, no, like my soulmate would have been like, you've got some shit to clean up.
And if you would have tried to force a relationship at that time, you would have ended up with someone who is probably a toxic relationship, not your dream, because you were not in a space to receive what you actually were like intended to 100%.
Receive. But at that time, I didn't have I knew I was not, I mean, I was going through all of my health things that I was going through at that time. It was like kind of peaking or hitting a low, depending on how you want to view it. It was like the worst it had ever been. It was like all culminating to like, you know, I was in shambles. There was a lot going on in my life at the time, so I wasn't ready for it. However, I felt like I was, because I lacked the self-awareness to be like, I'm not there yet. So like, for example, with like, you know, wanting my dream apartment, like I am self-aware in the fact that I am not at a place where the real dream apartment in the exact location, everything I want, it is not, I don't have that right now. And I want to take steps towards that. That piece, the self-awareness piece, is key. But then knowing that, okay, if I want that thing, if I want to go from point A to point B, I need to then take those like action steps to actually get there. And when you think about, okay, the version of me that has that thing at point B, that is literally your higher self.
Yeah.
That's what that is. So, okay, now going back to the whole concept of the experiment is making as many decisions as possible based on what your higher self would do. Again, the version of you that has the Range Rover, how would they treat their car? How would they treat their apartment? The version of you that has that dream relationship, how would they even treat themselves? Like, how would they, like, it's not just about like, how would they be towards a partner, right? Like, it's like, how would they view themselves? Like, the version of me that's in my dream relationship, she's not insecure. Yeah. Like, she's very comfortable in herself. She has balance. She has like things she's interested in. She has hobbies so that she has things outside of a relationship. Okay. I just identified a gap, right? Okay. Now, like, I need to take action steps towards that thing, or towards like being that version of myself. Like, yeah,
I think it comes back to, again, like you mentioned, the solution oriented mindset at the beginning of the episode. And it's also the concept of, I hear the term all the time, which I absolutely love this term. It's the term like radical self-responsibility.
Ooh,
And it kind of like ties into the solution-oriented mindset. But I think in a lot of aspects, and I hate using the word victim mindset. I hate that. However, I think it does come back to like, if there's something that you don't like about your life currently, instead of sitting there and dwelling on, well, I really want to be in a relationship, but I'm single. It's like taking a step back and being like, okay, solution oriented mindset, radical self responsibility. The only thing that is going to change my circumstance is focusing on what is inside of my control, and like taking a step back, having that self awareness to be like, okay, if I'm not in my dream relationship, or maybe I'm not even single, maybe I'm in a toxic relationship, like one of those two situations are true. And we're just using dating as an example here. This can apply to any aspect of your life, but it's kind of like, instead of sitting there being like, well, I'm single because all men suck, or I'm in a toxic relationship because all men suck, it's like, no, maybe I'm not in my dream relationship because I do have some things that I need to work on. Maybe it is like some insecurities that like I project onto another person, or maybe it is like some type of attachment style that ends up not working in a relationship. It's like, instead of dwelling on what is not in your control, that's not going to progress you towards your higher self at all. You have to have that radical self responsibility.
Yeah. And you think about like, when going back to like there's a couple things. So Kathrin Zenkina, she talks about the universe a little bit, in the sense that, not that the universe like views you as a toddler, but like the idea is basically like, you know, when like a toddler's like, I want fruit snacks, give them now, you know what I mean? And you're like, enough. You're like, I will give them to you, but just like, give me a damn second. That's how, like, if you are constantly being like, I want this thing, I want this thing, I want this thing, over and over and over again, but one, you're not trusting that it's going to come, and two, you're like,
you're not doing anything to get it on your own.
Yeah, you're not doing anything to get it on your own, but you're also not showing necessarily that you're ready for it. Like, why the heck is the universe going to give that to you? God, source, whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever you believe in, whatever you want to call the higher power, like, what? Like, it's like you're being needy, like, you know, it's like,
yeah, it's like that needy attachment to the outcome.
And it's not that like God, source, higher power, whatever, it's not that it thinks you're annoying, like, it's not what I'm saying, but it's just that, like,
yeah, it's a good way to think about it.
You want to show that you're ready for that. And I think that with the relationship thing too, that's big, because I've talked about this on my own page before. The all men suck mentality peeves me to no end. And I see so many videos of people who are like, I really want to be in a relationship, and I'm so upset about the fact that I'm not, and all men suck, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry, but I'm like, I really hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the reason that you might not actually be in a relationship is because your energy sucks.
Yeah.
Like, your mindset sucks. And I always say, when you got one finger pointing at somebody else, you got three pointing back at yourself. That was how I used to be, where I'd be like, I want to be in a relationship, and I'd be like frustrated about it, and I'd be like, it must be the men or whatever. No, it was me. Like, don't be wrong, I mean, well, part of the reason why it was me is because I'd go on dates with people that were just like, no. But also, I had things I needed to work on. Like, I needed to actually take the action step towards like figuring out my health. I needed to, like, you know, invest in my confidence and like do all these things. I needed to be a better version of me in order to attract that. So it's like, part of the whole experiment, going back to that, is like showing up every single day, trying to take some sort of action towards like, what would my higher self do, so that you're growing into the version that you want to be, but you're also showing the universe, God, source, whatever, that you are ready for those things that you want to manifest. Like, you know what I mean? The experiment has, like, I don't know, just like changed my life, honestly.
Yeah, really this is definitely a topic that we love talking about, and we're almost out of time here, but I feel like one last little section that we wanted to talk about is sort of like progress tracking and sort of like checking in with yourself over time, because I think that's what people struggle with these sort of like abstract, less concrete goals of like, I just want to be the best version of myself, or a better version of myself. It's like, what does that look like tangibly, and how do I make sure that I'm actually making progress towards it? Because it's like, we can like take action, but like, let's track where we're at on that journey from point A to point B. I know for me personally, this is something that I've really gotten into in 2024, and I've never done it before 2024 ever, is journaling. I think and I know we kind of talked about this before the episode, but journaling has been the best way for me to really track my progress and track like the differences in how I view things from like different time periods. Like, I know, like, when I sit down to journal, kind of the first thing that comes to my mind is like what I'm actively trying to like make progress towards, and that can show me like where my priorities are, what I'm making progress towards. So that's been really helpful for me.
I think like, well, I have so many thoughts obviously, but because this experiment has just been literally like life-changing for me. But I think a couple things when you have like a super specific goal, which could work for you as like being a specific manifester. If you're like, oh, I want to make $12,000, save $12,000 in a year, it's easy to be like, okay, did I save $1,000 a month? But when you have these more abstract goals, or if you're a non-specific manifester like me and you're focused more on the feeling, one thing I would also like challenge people to think about, and I had to kind of challenge myself with this, is like, why am I tracking the progress? What's the purpose of doing that? And what's my goal in tracking the progress? And you want to see growth, right? But I think sometimes we set deadlines, which also, if you're a non-specific manifestor, setting deadlines for things is actually not really very helpful for you. If you're specific, it can be.
Yeah, like deadlines help me.
Right,
they help me like break down the goal into like more tangible
or it's
goals.
like, I want to save $12,000 by this date, or I want to have this thing. And I used to do this with my business, with my income in my business. I'd be like, I want to make a 10K month by this date. And what it did was it put an arbitrary pressure on me, when in reality I needed to just focus on the feeling and not like the metric. So for me, I don't track like I'm not like sitting down at the end of Q1 and being like, all right, okay, Q1 recap, like, am I a better person today than I was 3 months ago? Or like in Q3 being like, okay, did I like do these things that my higher self would do more in Q3 than I did in Q2 or whatever? Like, no, I'm not doing that. But journaling and affirmations have been huge for me. And I'm so proud of you for journaling, because I feel like we talked about this a lot like last year. But journaling, like I was saying to you earlier, like on January 1st, my journal entry, I was literally sad. I was talking about how I was so sad that I started the first day of the year. I had a panic attack on New Year's. And I was like so sad that that's how I was starting my year off. I was like in such a bad headspace. I think about how my health was then, my confidence, everything. And then I would have like literally weeks where I would journal. I would literally be like, I have really not much to journal about today. I'm like so happy. Like, this is really great. You know what I mean?
I love journaling about when I'm happy.
I would journal about it. I'd write about what I was happy about, but also affirmations have been powerful for me. And we could totally do an episode on like positive self-talk, because there's so much neuroscience behind it that's really fascinating to me, and is what really inspires me to continue with affirmations. But the reason how I've been able to track progress with affirmations is that I can look, okay, let me explain how I do it. I have like a journal that I put on my nightstand every night. I write down a list of things I'm grateful for. And then I write a little bit about my thoughts, and then I write down my affirmations, and then I verbalize those affirmations. And I like that I write them down because it allows me to remember what affirmations I did and when. So I can look back, for example, in January, and look at the affirmations I was doing at that point. And because I practiced those affirmations and I was bringing it into my conscious and trying to rewire the subconscious belief simultaneously, I was actually able to like actually rewire that belief. So now I can look back and be like, oh, wow, the things I was doing affirmations around, like those limiting beliefs I was doing affirmations around at the beginning of this year, are not even problems for me anymore. A lot of them were like around like body image, confidence, health, insecurity, things like that. Those are not the affirmations I'm doing now that I'm like using to progress myself. And that is really, really empowering to see, like, holy shit, I actually rewired a limiting belief that I've had my entire life because I showed up for myself and I worked on it every single day in little ways. That's been really motivating, way more than trying to like, I think some people get too granular with it, where it's like, oh, did I do this thing today? Or like, was today a good mindset day? Or like, that's way too granular and you're going to get hard on yourself. Try to find more like abstract ways to track it.
Yeah, definitely. I love that too. I on like the affirmations piece, I have found what's been impactful for me is like coupling it with the journaling aspect. Whereas I think some people like you'll see TikTok videos of people like just writing down on a sticky note and like putting it on the mirror, like, I am beautiful, like, great. But what I have found has been the most impactful is journaling first. And then like same thing in my journal, I'll like write journal date and then like write either a paragraph or 3 pages. I let myself just kind of like do it for as long as I want to for that day. I don't put like a specific length to it. But then after I'm done journaling, I make another section called affirmations, and I try to do the affirmations related to what I'm journaling about, because then they feel very relevant for what's going on in my life. And if I'm having like a really good day and I'm journaling about something positive, I'm pushing that affirmation like one step further, and like maybe it's about like business expansion that day or something like that. But then if I'm having a day where I'm like feeling really down on myself and really hard on myself, my affirmations are related to that. So that has been a lot more like, I'm not just ticking off a box and being like, oh yeah, like I wrote that I'm beautiful, like, you know what I mean? I'm really making them applicable to what is in my train of thought for that day.
That's the key with affirmations, is affirmations as like a quick neuroscience thing. Like, what you have subconscious beliefs that are stored in your subconscious of your brain, and one of the ways to rewire those beliefs is through repetition. Because when you say something over and over and over again, your brain doesn't actually know whether it's positive or negative. So if you're like all men suck, all men suck, all men suck, whatever, your brain doesn't think that's a negative statement, I shouldn't store that, or that's a positive statement, I should store that, whatever. It just thinks like, well, you've said it a bunch of times, it must be important. So when you grow up in an environment where things are repeated to you over and over, you tend to store them in your subconscious, or things you say to yourself. So then to rewire them, you have to basically say the opposite and say it, like repeat it over and over. So because those beliefs prime your brain and shape how you view your reality. So when you're saying all men suck, that's like one of my favorite examples. When you're saying all men suck over and over and over again, you're actually priming your brain to pay closer attention to men that suck, because your brain wants to validate that belief. So then when you're doing, you want your affirmations to be relevant to what that limiting belief is in your moment, in that moment. So like, if for me, like, I think I've talked about this before too with you and on the podcast, like I was struggling for a while to believe that people would care about my social media, or that my social media could really ever be like a big business for me. So I do an affirmation that's like, I write it in the present tense, even though it's like a future thing. I'm like, I'm so grateful for the freedom and wealth my social media provides me. And so I focus on freedom and wealth, not I'm so grateful for the X amount of income it brings me, or the X followers, or X whatever. Like, it's just the feeling. And I do that every day. And when I first started doing affirmations, my therapist told me to do them. I was like, don't play me, Jen. Like, it was when we first started working together. I was like, Jen, no.
Yeah, it sounds so dumb.
I was like, ugh. But what I realized is the reason why it feels dumb is, one, if you're saying things that really aren't moving the needle for you, like things that you already know, it's like, why the frick am I saying this? Like, a lot of people don't like the like, oh, I am beautiful one, because maybe confidence isn't an issue for you,
or maybe it's not something that's just like top of mind for you that day. Like maybe like I don't necessarily feel confident every day, but today I'm not sitting there being like, oh, I'm not beautiful. Like, you know what I mean?
But also, what I learned for me was that the reason so many affirmations sounded, I hated it, I would cringe when I would say it, is because I felt like I was lying. It's because it does not match up with my actual belief that I have stored in my head. So I'm sitting there being like, because one of the affirmations I would start doing when I first started working with my therapist is I would say, I'm capable of anything and everything I set my mind to. I hated it. Oh, I used to cringe when I would say it. But the reason why is because I didn't believe it. So I'm sitting there feeling like I'm lying. I'm saying a statement over and over. It's making my skin crawl because I feel like I'm literally lying. So it's like, if you're like listening to us talking about affirmations and you're like, shut up, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing that. That's so cringy, whatever. It's probably because like it's not something that's top of mind for you, or it feels like you're lying, but it makes a massive difference. And being able to track that progress of being able to look back and say, okay, yeah, back in January, I was doing these affirmations around body image, or around like, trusting myself, around relationships or whatever. Those actually aren't the affirmations I'm doing now, because I can say those confidently. Like, I can sit here and be like, I'm capable of anything and everything I set my mind to. No questions asked. I don't have to repeat it anymore, because now it's a belief that's stored in my brain. Like, that's so empowering.
And that's such a good tip, to actually verbalize them once you write them down. That's something that I need to be better about, because I always write them down. I almost never say them out loud, but that is such a powerful tool, because like you just said, you can see the ones when you're speaking them out loud, you can see the ones that physically make you cringe. And that's like where, back to the self-awareness piece, that those are the areas that you actually do need to work on. And I do think it's helpful to give people like some examples of like, because it's easy to just be like, oh, an affirmation, like I'm beautiful, I'm smart, like whatever. Two of the ones that I say all the time, because a limiting belief that I have is, again, related to like my social media. But if you are like pursuing anything entrepreneurial, I think this will apply as well. I have a very big limiting belief, and I still have this, that the things that I'm doing are sustainable over the long run. So two of the ones that I say. One, I say my perspective is unique because that's something that I like don't inherently believe to be true. And then the second one is I'm capable of building a business that's sustainable over the long run. And like those are two of the ones that like I like consistently come up for me when I'm journaling and I'm doing my affirmations, because like I am self-aware of the fact that I have those limiting beliefs, and that's something that I want to change.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about like, don't stop at the discomfort. Like when you do the affirmations and it feels awkward, cringy, like whatever, that is a sign that you need to keep doing it. Like you think about when you go to the gym for the first time and you try a new exercise, you're like, what the frick am I doing? Like my form looks so bad. Like I'm doing this without any weights. Like I look, you know what
Us
I mean?
in the workout class
we
this
were
morning.
just in a workout class this morning and we were literally like, and we literally looked at each other and we started laughing because we were like, what are we doing? And there's nothing wrong with that, or there's nothing inherently cringe or bad or anything about the exercise class we were doing. It's the fact that neither of us had ever done it before. So using the equipment, doing the poses, all the things, we're like, wow, this feels so foreign to us. That's literally just a sign that like you need to show up more often. Like if you're saying these affirmations and it feels cringe to you, or you're like, I freaking hate that, like, or even with journaling, when I first started journaling, I would force myself to write a whole page. I stopped doing that. When I would do gratitude lists, I would force myself to write a certain number of things. I force myself either. It has to be what you genuinely feel. Like making an arbitrary list of like, oh, I'm grateful for this, grateful for that, whatever. Like on days when you're not grateful for a damn thing, right? I'm not grateful for a damn thing today. You know what I mean? Like, because and then journal about why you feel that way. Or like some days, like it will just be a very like mundane day. And the only thing I'm grateful for is my cozy bed. I write my cozy bed on my gratitude list all the time, because when I get in my bed at night and I'm like, I love it here. You know what I mean? That it has to be something you're actually grateful for. Yeah. Otherwise, it's really not going to make a difference in terms of rewiring beliefs or making you feel some type of way. But also with journaling, when you force yourself to write a whole page of nonsense, it's actually not doing anything for you. Write down like what is top of mind. For me, it's usually a couple of sentences to a paragraph or two. Days when I'm really going through it, it might be a few pages, you know, but then that's the same thing with affirmations. It has to be something that's meaningful to you and that really has a purpose, and have that self-awareness to be like, where do I need to start showing up more? Like, okay, I hate writing a whole page in my journal. Like, why is that? Is it because I'm forcing myself to write fluff, or is it because I am just like being lazy? Or you know, in affirmations, I'm showing up and it feels cringe, or I'm going to a workout class and I feel stupid. Okay, show up more often. Show up so often that you don't even feel an ounce of stupid, you know, or that the affirmations don't make you cringe at all. Like you have to have that self-awareness of like, I feel weird doing this, or I don't love, you know, not that I don't love doing it, but it doesn't feel natural to me.
Like make it feel natural to you.
Make it feel natural to you. Like show up so often that like you can sit there and be like, yeah, like I feel confident in this space. I have the business I love. I'm doing the things I love, whatever. I'm in my dream relationship, whatever, because you've shown up so much that you're ready for that and you believe that you deserve it, you know?
Yeah. I love that so much. And I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. We have been yapping for so long, and I didn't think that this was where the conversation was going to take us, but I think this was such a good conversation on this topic, and we can totally do future episodes kind of like expanding on any of the things that we touched on today, because I know we touched on a lot, and we do want to give you guys like a lot more resources to kind of like work through a lot of this. So if there's any resources that you think would be beneficial that we can send your way, that would be amazing as well. But I think we're right out of time because my dog is about to start barking. You can hear Bella like whining in the background. I don't know if anyone can hear that, but she wants to come into the room. So I think she's telling us that it's time to end today's episode, but we hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any episode ideas, questions, feedback, you can leave those in Spotify. We love hearing from you guys, or you can DM us on Instagram at The Life You Love Podcast. But thank you for tuning into this week's episode, and until next week.